So, um, yeah, all right, it's 7:35. I think we'll get going. Just a little bit how it's going to work. We're going to try to keep this short, concise. There will be a chance at the end to ask questions and get them answered. So, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat if you don't want to forget about it, or just hold on to it, and we'll get to it at the end. If it's a burning question that really desperately needs to get answered, feel free to chime in, and we can do that. But yeah, I want to try to be respectful of people's time here, and so we're going to get moving with this. This is what we're looking at tonight for our agenda. For those who don't know me, I'm Jake Wilson. I'm the president of Somerville Youth Soccer for the next 3 months here. Then my term is up, and we'll have to find some other sucker to come do this. So no, I joke. It's been very rewarding here. Thank you for volunteering. I'm a former toddler coach. I actually filled in even last fall briefly coaching toddler. It's still fun, even when I don't have a kid in the program. Like it was a good time. I looked forward to those sessions. We needed to have a bunch of people step up, and you all did that. Megan did an insane amount of work. I feel intense guilt about selling her on a job that was very easy for me last year. We only had 6 teams. There were very few late registrations. That's a very different case this time around. We have 20 toddler teams, 224 registrations. I can't remember what I estimated to Megan in terms of the hours required to put it together, but she probably burned through that on like day 2 for the spring. So yeah, I owe her an immense debt of gratitude for what she's come and done. Um, yeah, we're going to talk a little about some of the compliance stuff that we need people to make sure that they're doing before they take the field with their teams for the first time, just to make sure that we are in compliance as an organization with local, state, and federal statutes here. And then we'll talk a little about COVID protocols too. So you're all here because you are coaching with Somerville Youth Soccer. Thank you. We could not do this without you. We literally could not. We would just have a bunch of kids running around wildly on a field with no order. So coaches make this all possible. We're going to go through some of what it means here to be a coach with Somerville Youth Soccer. So we talk about credentialing and we talk about certification. Those are 2 very different things. Credentialing just refers to the things that are required by the various authorities. You need a background check through Mass Youth Soccer. You need to upload a certificate of completion for a concussion online training course, and a certificate of completion for the Safe Sport Abuse Prevention online training course. If you haven't already done the Safe Sport training, I want to warn you, it takes a little longer. It's 90 minutes to sometimes 2 hours, and it's very, very bleak subject matter. You'll leave with a dim view of humanity if you're anything like me. But it is required by federal law. It came about shortly after the Michigan State scandal, and I think it's for good reason. It's important, and we want to make sure that we're keeping kids safe. So yeah, it's a little bit of a lift that we ask of volunteers. The good news is once you take it, it's good for 3 years. You can sort of test out of it in year 2 and year 3 with a quick, I think it's like a 15-minute test that you can take. When we talk about certification of coaches, that's something different. That's going and taking a coaching course. We like our coaches to go do that. For toddler, there's no need for you to go do that yet, but we want you thinking about this as your kids get older. Your kids next in the fall could be in pre-K, and then they're playing games, and they're playing 4v4. And that's when we love to see our coaches go get certified, to the point that we will reimburse you your registration fees if you go take a US Soccer grassroots or D license course. I've taken them. They're good. The facilitators are excellent. I recommend them highly. Megan, is this accurate? We're still looking for more head coaches at this point, or do we have everyone? Do you have all the head coaches you could ever dream of?
I think we have everybody that we need, although we'll talk about assistant coaches. Oh
Yes.
Yeah, you're talking about assistant coaches right here.
All right, so even if we're good on head coaches, it's really good to have an assistant coach. If you are a single parent, or if you've been left alone with your children for any extended period of time, you know how nice it is to have backup. Coaching is no different, especially when you multiply the number of kids involved. So yeah, it's really good to have an assistant coach, and we're going to try to. If you don't have one on your team, we will work with you to try to get someone to step up and help out. Oh, that picture is dark. That picture does not turn out as good as I thought it would. A little bit about our toddler program philosophy. It is really all about fun. You know, they're not playing competitive games of soccer at this age. We don't want them doing a bunch of drills. It should just be, it's really all about fun. We make sure we try to really meet families' schedules in terms of the rostering. We let them basically say when they want to come to these. It gets a little different as your kids get older, in terms, it's not quite as user friendly schedule wise, but yeah, it's important for us to make this work for family schedules. We want to have 10 to 12 players per team. It can be higher in, non-COVID times. I coached a toddler team once with 19 kids on it. I did have an assistant coach, but that was a little wild. 10 to 12 is pretty manageable here in the setup that we're doing, which we'll get into in a second. Communication. We want you using our Sports Engine app for that. Back in the day, we did stuff on email, we did stuff over text. We got a mobile app because not everyone has regular access to email accounts. And email's not if there's an urgent thing that needs to go out. Like you know practice is canceled. Um, Email's not great for that. People may not see that before leaving for the field. So if you don't have the Sports Engine mobile app, please get that. That will be your conduit with your team. That's how you'll communicate with your teams. There's a chat functionality in there for more lighthearted stuff. We recommend using the message functioning there for sort of official coach updates, because that will send a notification to each family through their preferred means of notification, either an email or a text message. That's Sports Engine allows them to customize how they want to be communicated with. And finally, you don't really see this at Toddler, but I kept it in here just in case it comes up. We're officially discouraging carpooling during COVID times. But if it must be done, do it safely according to the state guidelines on that. That means, everyone wearing masks, sitting as far apart in the car, windows down, air circulating. Um, the one thing we'll say, this is from the risk management side, is for coaches, just don't be alone with a player that's not your kid. It's just a good practice to get into. The goals of our toddler program, and yes, apologies for the maskless player. That's an old photo of my daughter. They will be wearing masks. That was that was any port in a storm for photos, so I went with that one. Um, the goals are make it a really enjoyable experience for everyone involved. Get these kids to develop an early love of soccer, and make sure they learn about soccer. We want to, there's these are kids that are gaining, gross and, fine motor skills. Um, and it's good to help them with that too. And then teaching kids how to operate within a group setting, for team sports is also key. You'll see as coaches, sometimes the kids that are having trouble wanting to participate, 9 times out of 10, if you talk to the parents, it's the first sort of group setting, especially with daycares, people haven't had their kids in daycare as much. Yeah, it could be a very different experience for a lot of kids. So just be on the lookout for that. The group setting could be throwing kids off sometimes. And then I liken it to you are basically sort of a children's birthday party entertainer who's going to very secretly teach these kids soccer skills. Like they won't know it, right? If you do it right, they're not going to know that they're like practicing soccer, right? They're going to think they're playing, sharks and fishes or red light. To them it's a game, which is how it should be, right? But you're very slyly imbuing them with some skills like, my kids, by the time I finished coaching them, could pass and receive the ball. They could dribble the ball. They could use the proper surfaces of the foot. They could strike the ball properly, not using their toes. Um, they could tackle the ball off of their parent and intercept the pass. So, they just didn't know that they were gaining those skills. The single biggest thing you could probably do is if you see a kid using their toe, encourage them to not do that. Kids it's something that crops up even in the travel ages. We're like, how did this kid make it all the way to like travel soccer and still is using their toe? If soccer is new to you, the toe is only used in one very specific circumstance. It's called a toe poke. And it's only, yeah, a very specific situation on the soccer pitch. You generally do not want kids using their toes to kick a soccer ball. Yes, that is my pet peeve, is kids using their toes to kick a soccer ball. All right, we have a coaching manual. It's probably overkill for Toddler, most of what's in there. If you're curious what you're getting into, I'll mute my phone here. This explains sort of a holistic view of who we are as an organization, what we want our players to pick up as they progress, why we exist. It's all in there, including some developmental targets by age for kids. And as you move into the pre-K age, there will be some practice plans in there. We don't do practice plans for toddler, just because we want to leave it up to the coaches to, you can go in there with a great plan, and depending on what the kids, one week they'll be all about one game, and the next week they don't want to do it. So I would just say, just have a stable of games ready to go, because you never know what's going to work and what won't. But if you want to look at that, it's available on our coaches page, somervillesoccer.org/coaches. I don't think you're all really going to run into this so much, but we just want you to be aware that should you run into behavioral issues on your team, you don't have to bear it by yourself. We're here to help with that. We have policies about this. We have guidance. We can help facilitate discussions with parents about it too. At the top, I've never run into anything that would arise. The behavioral issue you'll get at this age is kids just go run off, and that's fine. If they want to go run off, it's a big park. Like, let them go run off. They'll come back when they want to play soccer. And honestly, let the parent worry about that anyway. You know. So yeah, I don't want to spend too much time worrying about behavioral issues. So our spring season. That's what the toddler calendar looks like. Thursday is the first day that our sessions begin. We don't have any Thursday sessions, so our first toddler sessions will be Saturday, the 17th. We're not scheduled for anything on Memorial Day weekend, but let's say the parents on your team come to you and you're going to be around, and people really want to do a toddler session that weekend. Talk to us. We can schedule something for you. And then the last day will be June 19th, a Saturday. So it's about 9-week season. So this is where toddler looks a little bit different. In the fall, when we brought it back, we wanted to try to, for a few reasons, the board felt it was a good idea to actually steal some of the initial. So when soccer first came back over the summer, they were trying to do everything physically distanced so that you couldn't actually play soccer. And they came up with this whole thing of these different technical areas that players could work in. And we stole that idea for toddler. And so using cones, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second, we basically set up these areas designed to keep the kids physically distant from one another. And then we want an adult in that technical area working with the kid. So you're basically sort of doing a family pod in a zone. Yeah, we had the roster size in there twice. Roster size 10 to 14. Sorry, Megan, you're wondering why I kept that in there. I changed it in one place, but not the other. The other change is, I know the beloved team snack. Everyone goes crazy for the team snack, but in COVID times, it's for the best that we skip that. Maybe in the fall we can get back to the team snack, but for now, we're discouraging that. So when we talk about the technical areas, this is roughly what it looks like. You're basically just going to use cones to set off areas for players to work in. And then as a coach, you just sort of walk through the middle zone there, and it'll let you basically see what all the players are doing, interact with them. You'll get goals. I just walk around with the goal and let the kid, bring it around from zone to zone, and we'll call it the hat trick hero. They get to score 3 goals and move on to the next kid. Does the diagram make sense to people when you see that there with the cones? You understand sort of what we're talking about? Okay. So when we talk about games at the top level, we're really talking about sort of mini children's games, not games of soccer, right? Things like red light, green light, um, sharks and fishes. If you don't know what these are, I'm happy to go over and explain what these are. Um, we can do that in the QA actually if people, I think it'd be also, I'd love to see us sort of form sort of community of toddler coaches to share things like what's working well, what's not, bounce ideas off each other, and maybe we share some things, because I'm sure there are people out there with great ideas that would love to share those. So we'll make sure we have an active toddler coaching community here in the springtime so that you can all talk to one another. But these are some examples of games that I found worked well in the fall. Some of them require modifications like sharks and fishes. You can't do the normal thing you do for sharks and fishes. Um, but yeah, you can still make it work a little bit.
Jake, what's bad acting?
Bad acting. Oh man. It's every kid's favorite favorite game, and I wonder about the life lessons it's teaching them. Basically, you tell the kids to kick the ball at their parent, and the parent pretends it's the most painful when it hits them. It's the most painful thing in the world. I really do wonder, like, why we are encouraging kids to hurt their parents and laugh about it. Are we raising a bunch of sadists, right? Um, you if you don't believe me, try it and see how much the kids love this. And the parents can ham it up and fall on the ground, and it's generally a delightful thing. We don't do it every week. It's sort of save it, maybe every third week towards the end. But yeah, it's kind of tough after that. It's tough to kind of pick it back up and start with something. You kind of have to save it to the end. It's like the grand finale. But yeah, it is a big hit, for better or worse. Parenting goals, that's just the parents just use their legs as a goal, just like step wide, and the kids just kick it between. Kids love that. Cat and mouse is just child takes the ball from the parent, runs away with it, parent goes and steals it back, runs away with it, just taking turns taking the ball off each other. But yeah, I'm sure there are many other games that are not listed that you've all found, if you've coached in the past, that you found work really well, and that's why we want to see people sharing.
I have a question, sorry.
Yeah.
When you play these games, how long do they normally last for, and how many games do you usually do in each session?
So I typically will end up doing 3 or 4 in a session. It's a 45-minute session. I find it's really hard to keep their attention. And honestly, some days it's going to be tough to keep their attention longer than 30 minutes. That's just how it is, right? Sometimes they show up and they're locked in, and like everyone's all in. Other days, I don't know if it's the moon or what, but kids are just like, ooh, and you just have to you have to not take it personally if the group's, just in outer space. But yeah, typically 3 or 4 is what so you'll probably do them for anywhere from, depending on, I think, 5 to 10 minutes. We've done some for 15 if they're really enjoying it. You hear different schools of thought, like switch away before they get bored, and then there are people that say, why would you ever stop doing a game if people are really into it? So I don't know what the right answer is. Raja, what's up?
Hey, maybe I missed this earlier. Are the parents going to be there to participate in the games here in all of these? Okay.
Yes, these are all designed with parents in mind, in there with them. We want, and it's just, it works that much better too, especially if you have a younger kid who's kind of reticent to jump into this. Having their parent there will help a lot. And honestly, it will keep them from wandering away, and the parents help a lot. Without the parents, it would be very hard to do. Yes, Janaki. Did I pronounce that correctly?
No, but that's okay. It's Janaki.
Janaki, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I was just wondering, will you be providing those cones, or
Oh yeah,
should we
we're
have
gonna
that?
provide all that stuff. Yeah, the ball.
Oh, amazing!
Balls.
Great.
We're gonna get to that in a second too.
Perfect.
We're gonna leave you with a little bit of homework, and one of the things involves getting your equipment. Yes, you'll have a lot of cones, trust me. That's a great question. All right. Can we talk COVID protocols for a second? It's pretty simple. Wear a mask at all times. stay physically distanced from players and if you have a fellow coach. There's a reason for that. That's because of how close contact is interpreted. If you are not within 6 feet of someone, right? Let's say a player goes on to subsequently test positive. You don't have to worry about quarantining, right? Because you weren't there, and you're not going to be considered a close contact. And that's the beauty of this. That that was also part of the board's thinking with this setup. Is at this age, some families have their kid are relying on daycare to be able to go work, right? And if their kid ends up in a quarantine and can't go to daycare, it can be hugely disruptive for that family. So the goal here is just to not take any chances with quarantine. I mean, quarantine happens. I was literally, before I signed on here, reading emails with the local board of health. They actually thought that we were too conservative with we basically shut down a team for 10 days after a player tested positive, and they thought that that was a little draconian on our part, and that the players sitting out would have been good enough. So we take it very seriously. We had teams get quarantined in the fall. We had a grade 1 and a grade 2 team that got quarantined in the fall. I think the city now has taken a slightly more open. They're not as strict about that as they've learned more about this. As we can tell from this latest case, when they were like, "Why did you shut down a team?" And we're like, "Last time it happened in the fall, you told us to do that." But yeah, it's just, we don't want to see anyone's life get turned upside down with an unexpected quarantine, because that's, everyone is so concerned about, for obvious reasons, the risk of transmission. But there's this other negative outcome that can happen that people tend to not think about so much, and that is getting stuck in quarantine. So long story short, that's why we're big on the physical distancing at this age. But yeah, stay home if you're experiencing any symptoms. Hopefully at this point, that's something everyone's bought into. Don't share equipment. So it's less of an issue at this age because you're not really sharing equipment. The big thing is in Sports Engine, there's an RSVP function. Oh, we have a question? I see a hand up.
Yeah, sorry, but it was about this. Are these rules going to be communicated to the parents, or are we supposed to be, communicating them ahead of the first practice?
These rules are they have been and will continue to be communicated to parents, definitely. I believe they signed an agreement to abide by these when they registered as well. But yes, and this is stuff that we can't over communicate this, in my opinion. So we will definitely be making sure that people get constant reminders about that. But yeah, use the RSVP function in Sports Engine to track attendance. First of all, we want parents doing that, so you know how many people to expect. If it turns out that a bunch of 6 players are not going to be there, that'll save you time in setting up those zones, right? You won't need to set up 12 zones. The other thing is then use it to take attendance at practice. And when you greet players, say hello, check them in on there, right? Make sure that they're marked as a yes, and that God forbid we have to do any contact tracing, but that will come in very handy. Toddlers don't really need a COVID coordinator. We left that in there just because of the setup of it. You don't really have, so with the older ages, when there are spectators involved, we felt it was unfair to ask coaches to police the spectators in terms of compliance. So we came up with the idea of having a parent volunteer to basically have the coaches be responsible for the on the field compliance, and have a parent volunteer for each team be responsible for off-field compliance spectators. But that's with Toddler, you generally won't ever have spectators. You have parents physically distanced with their kids. There's not the same need. We say no eating at fields. That's a little bit relaxed for Toddler. It's generally not good to eat and exercise at the same time. But then I know what hangry toddlers are like. So we're not gonna. That one's a little flexible. No eating at fields, but just please make sure you're not doing a team snack. That's what we would say. But if you see a parent busting out some goldfish to give their kid, I would let that slide. Should someone on your team, should you test positive or develop symptoms, please email covid@somervillesoccer.us and report it. That will trigger some things of us contacting Mass Youth Soccer, the local board of health. We are sadly experienced in that at this point. We know how to handle that. We'll do a good job, I promise. But hopefully it never comes to that. All right, for fields for your 45-minute sessions, we have Hodgkins and Nunziato on Saturday mornings, and we have Triangle Field on Wednesday afternoons. These are all grass fields, which brings us to our next slide. Our weather policy. I'm gonna guess at this age, there's not gonna be the same appetite for playing on in rain that you have with older ages. I've generally, our toddler sessions, I feel like get canceled pretty quickly, like even when it's sprinkling. So don't feel like you need to soldier on. This weather policy is organization wide here. So it's written largely with like, older teams in mind. Do not be shy about canceling your practice if it's even sprinkling. Generally, families don't want to come out in that anyway. However, if it's lightning, that's generally going to be the end. With a 45-minute session, it's probably the end of your toddler session if it lightnings, right? If you see a lightning strike, if you hear thunder, it probably makes sense to just call it, because you have to wait 30 minutes after the last visible lightning strike or audible thunder before you can restart. So if you're talking about a 45-minute session, it's, you're going to be waiting around for longer than you're going to actually be practicing at that point. And then you see there extreme temps. I mean, hopefully we're done dealing with wind chills down that low for a while. The heat could become an issue, although honestly, in the mornings on weekends, it's probably less likely to be an issue. So yeah, I don't expect the temperatures to really play into effect there. When it does get warmer, just make sure the kids are taking frequent water breaks. But so with grass fields, they will get canceled sometimes. The sessions, the city will close the grass fields. They'll tell us grass fields are closed. We will say, hey, coaches, grass fields are closed today. And that will mean that your sessions get canceled. We'll do that for you. We'll just go into Sports Engine. We'll cancel it. Please don't, if you hear grass fields are closed, don't go delete the event, because a deletion in Sports Engine equals no notification to people. So we definitely want the notification to go out so families know not to turn up. If you want to cancel a session on your own, you can always you can do it yourself. You can also just email us and let us know. It's good to we just like to keep track of a cancellation. That's like, let's say only 3 kids are going to be there. Let's say it's like school vacation week or something, and only 3 kids are there. That's fine. The question here: how far in advance and where do we? So typically the call on Saturday mornings is made by 7 a.m. So we should have a call from the city at least 2 hours before the first toddler session. On weekdays, they usually like to make that call by 2 p.m. Sometimes it comes as late as 3 p.m., which could get a little close to that 4 p.m. toddler slot. We will keep an eye on that. We will be in touch. Our fields director hates it when people, email him or post in the chat, are the fields open? Because there's a very clear answer there. The fields are open and sessions are on unless you hear from us, right? We'll let you know right away. Like, it's the first thing we do. The second we get that announcement from the city is we go tell our coaches about it. So if you haven't heard anything from us, that means fields are still open and sessions are on. And the second that changes, we will let you know. But yes, please don't antagonize the fields director by asking if fields are open. All right, we have some homework for you. If you have not already done so, please make sure you're credentialed. If you are thinking, oh, I've got a session on, coming up, I'll log on like the night before and do whatever I need to do, you're going to be disappointed, and the kids on your team are going to be very disappointed. It takes a day or two for the Corey background check to go through, and it has to happen on weekdays. So I would really encourage you, if you haven't done all this stuff, get started on it tonight. Some of the things are quick. It's quick to register. It's quick to do the background check. The concussion training is it's a little bit of time. The big one, like we talked about earlier, is the safe sport abuse prevention training. You have to get all 4 of those things done to be credentialed and to be allowed on the field with kids. That's a risk management issue for us. So we need you to do those 4 things pretty much right away. Then we need you to register with us in Sports Engine if you haven't already done that, and that allows us to add you to a roster. as the coach. So it's a 2-step process, one of which has 4 mini steps within it. Equipment, which was asked about earlier. All right, I would encourage you, you can text him right now while this slide is up. Text Marco Vieira, our long-suffering equipment manager. Text him at 857-500-2912. Give him your name, tell him you're a toddler coach, tell him you'd like to pick up some equipment from him. He will get that ready for you. I believe today is, the man typically works 7 days a week, but today is his day off. So I'm sure he would love to put together a kit for you to pick up. And it's in his back, it'll be in his backyard. He lives right behind the Argenziano School, right by Lincoln Park, 37 Clark Street. And this is a list of what you're going to be getting there.
Jake, do they need to specify how many soccer balls they need?
He'll know. He'll give you 10 or 12.
Okay, well, so we have, most of our teams are 12, and then there's 1 or 2 with 14.
Yeah, I mean, we've messaged to families. We really want kids ideally buying their own soccer balls, and most do. Most kids show up with their own soccer balls. But yeah, if it turns out it's not enough, you know, let him know. I will drive soccer balls over to your house if 12 is not enough.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, kids typically show up with their own soccer ball, which is great. We want them bringing it home, you know, playing with it. They have an attachment to their own soccer ball in most cases.
Are you communicating to parents that they should be purchasing their own soccer balls?
Yeah, we should probably send out another blast to them. But yeah, it'd be good to make sure.
Yeah,
the
I included
parents
it
know
in the
about that.
last blast, but I will be sending out another email to the parents with all these things that we've been talking about, either most likely tomorrow or by the latest Wednesday.
So,
Go
sorry, Jake. You said earlier that kids should be sharing bibs and pennies. What happens to those at the end of the game? Or
Well, I mean, you don't really at the toddler age. We're not playing soccer game. We're not playing games of soccer, right? So you shouldn't need to divide them up into teams at all. That will come into play at pre-K and K definitely. I did with the group that I coached for 2 years. We did as an experiment the very last session. This is in non-COVID times. We're like, what happens if we put some goals out and have them go play soccer? And it was pretty funny. It was they did not stage a spectacular display of soccer as you probably would imagine, but it was very cute and funny. And everyone get Marco's number. This will be, by the way, this video will end up on YouTube. So congratulations, YouTube stars. It will be unpublished. So basically anyone with the link will get it. We're not going to go splash this all over the internet. But in the presentation will it'll be a PDF of it that'll be sent out to everyone too. So if you didn't get a chance to text Marco, there will be plenty of opportunities to do that still. COVID. This is some homework too. We want you to go pick up a COVID sanitation kit if you haven't already done so from under the deck at 23 Sergeant Ave. That's Dominic Lakowitz's house. He is our registrar, our risk management director, and our COVID safety officer. This kit will contain what you see there. If you run out of something, by all means, get in touch with Dominic. You can email COVID safety at somervillesoccer.us, and he will hook you up with more. And the last thing there, get vaccinated. You as soccer coaches, believe it or not, are considered out of school time providers. That means that even if you don't meet all the other criteria to be eligible for a vaccine, you are eligible now. You don't have to wait till the 19th. We had 50 coaches of ours. We sent out, something basically stumbled on, it fell into our laps on Thursday about a thing Somerville was doing for OST providers. And we blasted that out to coaches. Some of you probably saw it. Maybe some of you even took advantage of it. But we had maybe possibly as many as 50 coaches go get vaccinated on Friday. And so by all means, start looking for your vaccine appointment if you have not. And then finally, wash your hands, sanitize before and after team events. All right, Q&A. I'm sure we've got more questions. Fire away.
Hi, this is Will. I'm sorry I had called in and I just joined via computer, but so I definitely missed some of the early slides. You're going to be sending around a PDF or something, I saw?
Yeah, we will
Okay, perfect.
send around a PDF of the slide deck here, and then also the entire presentation, this entire meeting, the video of this is going to be available to go back and watch too.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, I see several hands up. Ricardo, it listed you first, so.
All right, thanks. So I'm gonna be missing some of the practices because we had some vacation plan. What happens? I would hate to cancel on everyone. Can I rely on someone else? Like I don't have an assistant coach yet, and so.
Well, let's get you an
what's
assistant coach. That would solve that problem, right?
Yep. Yeah.
We'll
are there
help you find an
volunteers?
assistant coach, right?
Cool.
So now that
And if you need to go away, there's no, parents will be understanding too. Everyone's been sitting at home for so long. I think parents will understand if, as long if we're talking about like a session or two or something, gets canceled. If you're talking about like half the sessions, we should probably really make sure you have an assistant coach. But
Sure.
yeah, well, I don't think you're going to get many gripes if you cancel 1 or 2 sessions on families.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
sorry,
I have no idea who. Everyone's got their hand up. So let's see, Raja, you're next on my screen.
Yeah, quick question. If my daughter is on the team and I'll be working with her, presumably, how do I manage the coaching and the work with her?
Yeah. So is a co-parent available by chance to come help with that?
Not always. And
Not
pretty-
always. Okay. I mean, it might come down to how good your child is about staying in one spot and sort of doing something with you not actively looking at them. I could see it going several ways. I know it's that Megan had brought that up too. Like, did we fully message to them the fact that like if you're going to be coaching, it's tricky to sort of also be a parent to your kid. Yeah, the advice is definitely if you can bring in, have a co-parent there to help out that kid. Yeah. Or just hope your kid is able to function, with you sort of wandering around and giving other kids some attention too. Janaki, you had another question? No? Oh, okay. Anthony, I see a hand up from Anthony.
Hi, I wanted to ask a little more about, how this is going to work with the COVID protocols and,
Yeah.
with the actual coaching and a grid. Like, let's say we have 12 people there.
Yep.
Then you've got, quite a big space to cover. Do you, like, what do you recommend we do? Like, if we're explaining something, do people come and do you like sit and show a game, or like, is there a chance for us to kind of explain to everybody and they're all sitting around 6 feet apart from each other and then go back to their squares? Like, how does that look?
You could do that. What I typically did was I just wanted to make sure that we were as compact as we could be within, so that we weren't leaving like the center channels, like the central technical areas open, and everyone going on the ends. And that way, I sometimes, honestly, in a mask, it's a little tough to communicate sometimes. A lot of times I ended up sort of saying something to half of the kids and then going over to the other half and making sure that they heard it too. It's suboptimal, but it did work. Let's put it this way. I don't look back on that time and think like, oh, that was terrible. I had to like explain that thing, for each half of the field. So, yes, in the moment you were like, oh, I better go tell them. But it wasn't like, it wasn't such a negative that it got in the way of stuff, I would say.
And can I ask a quick follow-up about the COVID? Actually, it's kind of like in two opposite directions. One is like, what about these variants that have, what has the board considered, and are they going to revisit as they learn more? I'm sure they will, but what's that going to look like? And going in the other direction, like if things look better, is the board planning to revisit and like relax these rules a little bit? Because, I was a little surprised at how it was going to look with the numbers of people, and I'm sure we'll figure it out, but I'm having a little trouble wrapping my head around it. So I'd like to know how that's going to look going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit I wasn't sure what it was going to be like until I went and did it last fall. That was helpful too. And you're right. Like we have these two simultaneous, one very pessimistic thing, we're worried about these variants. On the other hand, like people are getting vaccinated, like the numbers, and numbers should be looking better too. So my guess in terms of variants, we're already taking, as you pointed out, like a very cautious approach with this anyway. I guess the next step would be we shut down, like if there's an explosion. So in the fall, 83,000 kids played soccer in Massachusetts through Mass Youth Soccer. There were 0 known transmissions through youth soccer. We want to keep that number at 0. If it turns out that number is not being kept at 0, we're going to have to reevaluate some stuff. These variants turn out that like they're that they pose a threat through soccer. We will need to reevaluate. At the other side, if the numbers we're hoping numbers do start looking better. We've kind of baked that into the thinking here. It's tough to, unless we like somehow hit magically herd immunity and like things are just phenomenally better to the point that, I think we're gonna be wearing masks for a while. That's my view. I could see us looking, it's gonna be such a short season. It's really hard to imagine things dramatically getting better to the point that we are revisiting the toddler setup, by like the June board meeting. That's less than 2 months away. But I'll never say never. Like if things dramatically get better, the board are human beings who can be swayed by both logic and human emotion. So yeah, we're not above reevaluating past decisions. Martine, you have a question?
Yes, sorry. It was a follow-up to the question about vacation and being away. And I think a bunch of us don't have assistant coaches, and that's fine. Is there an opportunity not to cancel and to sort of chat with the other coaches to see if someone can sub? I think there's a chat feature in the app, right?
Yeah, if someone wants to go sub, that would be awesome. If we could find a creative way to not cancel us. Who knows? I could make, I would, so I coach my 2 older daughters' teams right now, which usually means my Saturdays are insane, but I would be willing to come in and sub on, on someone's team. I'm free Wednesdays. If one of the Wednesday sessions has to, Megan, you said you might have to go away. I could come take I'm going to be there anyway to show you the ropes a little. But,
and a small follow-up is, I assume if there are parents willing to do it, that's not okay because they've not been trained and certified, right?
That's right. Anyone who's going to interact with kids who are not their own needs to be credentialed. That's true.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Let's see who else had. Megan, did you have your hand up to ask a question?
I did. Just a quick question. If a couple teams have siblings, is it okay if they're in the same zone? I assume it is.
Yeah, it might prove yeah, there's that's fine.
Okay.
That should be fine.
Just up to that parent, right?
Yeah, they may come to rue that decision if the 2 siblings. I don't know what the answer is though. But yeah, back when I coached toddler soccer, my older daughter typically was at the fields with us too. So I know when you're sort of on your own with multiple kids, you got to do what you got to do. So.
Yep. And then one other just follow up. Now that the teams are pretty much in place, I'll start blasting out to parents asking for assistant coaches. So I will
Awesome.
help there just so everybody knows. I just haven't gotten to that part yet.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Joy Wong, you have a question?
Hello. Yeah, sorry. I have a question. I didn't raise my hand last time, so I apologize for that. I didn't know we were doing that. But I have 2 questions. One is, I do have an assistant coach. She's not here tonight, but do we both have to go get all the equipment, or do we only get one set and we have to coordinate amongst each other?
The latter. There's one equipment kit per team.
Okay. All And then the second question is sort of related to what the other parent was saying about the speaking. I also had concerns about that. And I was thinking of bringing my daughter's karaoke microphone.
Oh,
I mean,
nice.
do you think that will be okay? I don't want to like cause a scene in the field. I don't know.
I think it would probably entertain people to no end, actually. I think
All
that's
right.
a great idea. I may steal that for my like travel team.
See how it goes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I may auto tune it for the travel team. All right. Do we have any other questions? Roger, did I see that you answered? Did I see you raised your hand for something too?
Yeah. So I'm not sure this is a helpful question, so apologies in advance. Since we have this problem with potentially with parents not being able to work with the team if they have their child and not there, can we have a setup where I would be, for instance, going instead of the 10, I could start at the 11 o'clock and coach the 11 o'clock team and then work with my daughter?
Oh,
Is that
a creative
like-
solution to it? Yeah, I would say talk to Megan about that, and we can see maybe someone would want to swap. Swap. Basically, you didn't be talking about kids sort of swapping places then at that point, right? In terms of sessions and coaches. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And if a lot of the parents fall in that category, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a very creative solution. I love it. That's awesome. Did you have another question? Or no, Christopher, I see your hand up.
Oh no, I was just scratching my face. Yeah, but I liked that comment. So I could be keen on it, depending.
I'm the other Christopher with.
Yes, I was like, wow, he's talking, but his lips aren't moving, and I was like, oh, there's got to be another Christopher.
Excuse me. So my question was back. Thank you for advertising about the out of school workers qualification for the vaccines. Is that is it go to mass.gov and go to school providers, or what is the subgroup? Or
no, it's a little. We were trying to get more clarity from the city of Somerville about that today. We actually contacted them and say, hey, we said, hey, are you going to do this again? Because we'd love to give our people more notice. So more, it was a rush job. We found out. I got an email Thursday morning at 9:30. Blasted that out, I think, to the all coaches thing, really shortly thereafter, but the deadline was like 3 p.m. to register for it, right? So unless you were there and saw it, they said they weren't. Somerville's currently not planning on doing any more of those. What I would say is, like, you have to go through normal channels at this point, but you're eligible. Like when they start asking about eligibility, you are an out of school time provider, and that is they're included in this current phase.
Piggyback on that question really quick. I loved about the games, and I'm sure I'll find out more. But you were saying the Sharks is one of those to be adapted?
Sharks and minnows, yeah, the old Sharks and minnows. You'd have everyone, if you aren't familiar, everyone would go on one side of the field, that to dribble, and then you'd have one shark that would try to steal the soccer ball away. And if you got your soccer ball stolen, you became a shark, right? So you have to do it a little bit differently, where just like it's going to be the parent and the kid in the thing, and you see which kid can run past the parent the most number of times. It gets a little boring because if the kids, you want the parents letting them do it a bunch, because if a parent eliminates a kid right away, they're just going to be sitting there watching everyone else go. Connor, you have a question? Christopher, do you have any other questions? I didn't mean to move away from you. Okay. Connor, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Jake. I'll start by saying that I'm hopeful that the board might reconsider the setup of toddler soccer, given the very lack of evidence of outdoor transmission, especially while wearing masks. But I understand the approach being conservative.
It does. I agree with you. It does feel like we're being overly cautious. I agree there.
I understand. Just putting in a vote for that. But my question is, so I was the the numbers are shocking for registrations this spring. Should I at Hodgkins Curtin, should I expect there to be 2 teams on that field on weekend practice?
Megan, you want to tell them?
Yeah, there's actually 3 at Hodgkins.
With squares.
It's there's gonna basically left field, center field, and right field going on there.
Okay. Are we assigned to them or just show up and get?
It'll be show up and grab whichever one. We'll have to, we could try.
Connor, it's Chris. You want to coordinate? I think we can coordinate on what size that goes in there. But I mean, with that setup with the boxes from last year, I mean, it's going to be kind of compact, but
yeah,
we'll make it work.
I mean, infield might need to be used a little bit too, I would say, with that.
Okay.
Yeah, it will. We talked about that. I was like, Megan, did we discuss whether a 4th thing could be there? I was like, no.
I don't think so there, but 4 at Nunziato.
Nunziato, you could do 4, but not at Hodgkins. Yeah,
I was gonna say maybe if Joy Huang wants to bring the microphone to that one, we can do all 3 sessions at the same time.
I love it.
I'm happy to bring it.
All right, we might have borrowed it. Awesome.
Oh, they're gonna love that. They're gonna love that. Yeah, no, and let me just say, I agree. Like it on one hand, it can look like overkill in terms of caution with it. We are like I said, we are just really leery of, and let me say, let us talk to the city of Somerville, because I literally was just reading the email from Doug Kress, the head of the local board of health. Does anyone know Amy Bantham? She's the city's COVID person. She's the consultant to the schools. They're working with us because with SPS testing now, testing all the kids, they've had some positives and they just want to talk to us, and they thought we were sort of overreacted by shutting that team down. So if it turns out that they're telling us that they're not going to consider soccer close contact, then that changes the equation for us with toddler soccer quite a bit, actually. We don't want anyone's life getting disrupted because their kid played soccer. That's what we're all about. That's why we shut the season down a week early in the fall, is because Thanksgiving was coming up. We had teams going into quarantine. We didn't want anyone's, depending. I know there are different opinions on whether people should have been having Thanksgiving dinner with relatives, but the reality is people were doing it, and the board felt it just wasn't right to potentially have people surprised by a quarantine at a time like that. So we're people too, right? We understand. Any other questions here? Janaki?
Yeah, this may be obvious, but I'm just thinking through the COVID protocols. So when as a coach or an assistant coach, when we're walking through that center lane, we're never going to be entering into the the little quadrants for our team, right? We'll always just be great job,
Yeah.
Wait, okay.
I never had to go when I was coaching. I never had to wander into any kid's area.
Okay, and you just provide verbal
Yep.
encouragement. Okay.
Yep. I mean, I've had them pass the ball to me and passed it back to them. I didn't have to actually enter into their area. Anthony, I see a raised hand.
Yeah, just wondered if you had any advice or any thoughts on how to create a team, a team feeling and team building under these in these circumstances. Normally you'd have kids sitting together, they would get to know each other, they'd be playing together. Seems like if you have any tips or anything, that would be great.
Yeah, so I mean, the things you can do is you can give your team has a nickname, right? We have these Winnie the Pooh characters that have been in place forever. We had so many teams that we had to go look up obscure Winnie the Pooh characters. If you're wondering how your team got that name, it's because and at this point we've exhausted pretty much every Winnie the Pooh thing we could find. So yeah, that's why there are no more teams. We ran out of Pooh related names. So your team has a name, come up with a team cheer. That's something you could do. I'm struggling to come up with other, you could talk, you talk about like the values of the team if you want to. We pay attention. We do, those are, I guess, on a small level, those are things you can do to foster a bit of a team identity.
Because
I
you can
know.
encourage kids to like encourage each other, and
Yeah.
but it's sort of, I don't know, like, can they even pass a ball between each other, between their boxes? Like,
They can do that too. They can pass with the zone next to them.
okay, so you could try to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right.
When they score a goal, when they score a goal, I can say this, I swear. You can cheer, a goal for the Heffalumps,
Mhm.
You could have the rest of the team cheer them when they score it, right? You have to get creative.
Hey, Jake, it's Megan.
Hey, Megan.
I just wanted to, it's 8:30 and I did tell people it would go to just about 8:30. So is
Yep.
there any, I'm happy to continue with questions, but are there any last messages for people who need to drop off?
No, if you need to go, if there's question you think of after the fact, email Megan, email me. We're here to answer your questions. Again, thank you so much for doing this. You guys answered the call in a huge way, and that's why we're going to be able to offer all this toddler soccer this spring. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed it, and we're here to help you. So don't be shy. All right.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks, everyone. If you want to, you can follow me over to the Positive Coaching Alliance thing if you're curious what they're saying. But there's the contact info for anyone who needs it. And I'll probably see some of you at the fields.
Great, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Megan.
Good night.